Hello my boils, my ghouls, and my zools. Welcome back to Kalash Kamaz. I am so happy to announce we have finally crossed the 1,000 subscriber threshold and still growing. With that came a lot of questions, so I couldn't thank you guys. I just couldn't thank you enough. Seriously, it means the world. It really does. All the support, I mean, you guys have shown me a lot of love. And it's at times overwhelming. It's very, very cool. So stripped down a little bit, no suit today, so I'm just gonna do our first Q&A. So I do have some questions here copied down onto the notepad, and unfortunately, the first time I've ever done this, I'm an idiot. I forgot to get your usernames on there, so sorry for not crediting you for your questions, but you know who you are. Some of these are multi-part questions, and I'll definitely get to that when they come, so I guess let's get this going. First question. Does compressor dance?
Compressor does not dance.
No, compressor does not dance. However, vitamin K is found in plants. It's an anticoagulant. Which is your favorite next question. Which is your favorite comp rifle and why? Have you noticed any benefit in your shooting overall by changing the lineup at competitions, or is a dedicated setup key to better scores? So we'll go with the first part of that. My favorite competition rifle and why. Right now, I'd have to say I am really loving my Saiga 223. I do have a few 5.56 AKs. Out of all of them, just a nice 16-inch barrel standard AKM setup with 223. Oh my god, I am loving it. Only thing I actually have done to that rifle at all is I installed an ALG trigger. Lightly profiled, actually. It's not even very heavily profiled. I just kind of gave it a nice file to slick it up and installed it. So, my other favorite competition rifle, I would have to say, would be the Zastava M85. What I like about that rifle, obviously it's a shorty. It actually does weigh a little more than a lot of other shorties because of the 1.5 millimeter receiver. It does actually help with the recoil management quite a bit. And plus on mine, I have an Ultimac and a Texas Weapon Systems dust cover on there. So coupled with the full Kalashnikov furniture, that thing weighs a ton. And actually, I do like heavy rifles, surprisingly. A lot of people don't like that. Personally, I think it's great for recoil management. It's not that big of a deal to run with the things, and it's not that big of a deal to get to the snap on a heavy rifle if it's a shorty, but if that rifle was a full 16 inches and weighed the same, oh, it would be awful, frankly. To the second part of that question, have I noticed any benefit overall by changing the lineup at competitions, or is a dedicated setup better to key to better scores? Yes, I have actually noticed a great benefit in changing up my rifles. It's really helped me to see what I like out of a competition rifle and what I just like out of a regular plinker. So, one of the things I found is obviously trigger. With competition rifles getting well-rounded, having some with adjustable gas, some without it. Definitely with competitions, I found I do like the adjustable gas because you're going to be able to lower your muzzle rise, so it's great for those double taps at long range. Do I think it's key to better scores? No, I do not. Do I think switching up rifles or sticking with one rifle is key to better scores? No, I don't, because, everybody's a different type of shooter, but I do think there is a benefit to learning one rifle real well. You could take it, for example, Jose Sweet Dick Diaz. He is a fantastic shooter. He only shoots one rifle, just one. So, you see other shooters, as like friend of the channel Clayco, he switches up rifles damn near every single competition and he's crushing it. So, I think it really depends on probably your experience and probably just who you are. So, I think it's something that you should do and check out to discover if you're that type of person, but I think there is a lot of benefit to just sticking with one rifle. You're going to know that rifle better than anything else. But, I've said in the past, I'm a person that kind of hits walls. So, you might actually find you're one of those people too. And, that's one of the reasons I do like to keep it fresh because, when I hit that wall, go shoot a few other rifles, a couple competitions, come back to my main rifle after that, I feel very freshened up, like I broke through that wall. So I think that's something to try for yourself. So there's actually another part of that question which is very nice. It's a more personal one. How you doing, man? Need a life update. Experienced any more fucked up drive-by action? So that's referring to last year I was shot in front of my house, if you didn't catch that video. It was just a random drive-by, and I'm doing great. I'm doing great. When it gets cold, I do still have a little bit of achiness in the leg, but other than that, I'm doing fantastic. It was just a nice deep graze, it bounced off my hip. The one, I had 4 mags dropped at me and they only hit me once because, it was just some scared kids yanking the trigger. And funny enough, being a competition shooter, I could tell they were actually pulling their shots because most of them went left of me and just perforated my backup car, unfortunately. But yeah, so I'm actually doing fantastic. Don't really have any lasting, major physical things from it or anything like that. It was just a nice crack in the hip, and I got lucky because the bullet bounced off my bone. And luckily didn't chip any bone, your hip's pretty strong. So, yeah, couldn't say anything else other than I'm doing great. Personally, I am going through a little bit of legal trouble right now that is sucking up goddamn every bit of cash because, freaking lawyers. But it is what it is. We'll make it through it. Still gonna have this dumbass smile on my face. So, next one. Fuck, I need a crank. That's not really a question, but yes, you do need a fucking crank. Alrighty, got another multi-part question here. This is a two-parter. What is your favorite camo pattern? Oh my god, man. You gotta ask me a question like that? Jeez. Jeez. It's like asking a 1,000-pound man what his favorite food is. So I'd have to say, some the blue tiger stripe, which I couldn't call it Russian or anything because multiple countries do use that. Ukraine as well. I do love that blue tiger stripe. It's a police pattern, most notably known for Oman or Barkut from Ukraine. Oman being Russia, Barkut being Ukraine. I do love that pattern quite a bit. Most of my favorites are Soviet patterns. I do love TTSKO. Again, I love the Russian version or the Ukrainian version. I think it's a beautiful pattern. When it comes to like international patterns, I do have a real big thing for them. I mean, quite obviously I love that Serbian tiger stripe. Out of American patterns, I mean, dude, you can't go wrong with just regular old tiger stripes. So clearly I have a thing for the tiger stripe quite a bit. But who can discount God's plaid, man? Just regular old woodland. That's one of my favorites. I've been wearing it since I was a child, so I can't really not include that in that. But another Russian pattern I love, SS Lido Partisan. Absolutely love that camo. That might even be my favorite. I'm not really sure. It's just a hard question for me to answer because I'm just into camo, man. Some others that I really love that are less well known. Sierra Leone has some really cool camo. They got woodland type patterns with more browns and blues and stuff like that. Kazakhstan is really cool. Those are takes on American patterns. And you have alternate color chocolate chip. You have alternate color woodland patterns. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. And the second part of that question, any brand of mags you've had issues with? So, I've been lucky enough where I can say absolutely not because I honestly started buying pretty quality mags right off the bat and got the message that that's very important because like a lot of people, I started with ARs and you definitely run into a lot of shitty AR mags because there's so many on the market. So you find what you like and stick with it and then, maybe find some others that are just as good and you start adding those into the collection. And when it gets down to it, I mean, you can't go wrong with Bulgarian mags, can't go wrong with a Bakelite. But out of the cheaper mags, I was very surprised with the Zastava Toro mags. Those are real good mags. Real chonky. So, for polymer mags, man, you're not going to do anything to those guys. I've actually never bought anything like a pro mag or anything like that, which I've heard a lot of bad things about. So, luckily, me personally, I haven't. I mean, one of my other favorites, AC Unity. I love AC Unity. I've never had any kind of feeding issues whatsoever. They cycle fantastically. I chucked those things all over the ground and never had a problem. One time I heard one person saying that, they chucked an AC Unity on the ground and it exploded, so fuck AC Unity. And, that's not me. One time ain't enough for me, You have to do that shit repeatedly, because, even though the U.S. seems to be having a real problem with science these days. Science is, evidence based on repeated observations. So, with my own personal mags, I've never had anything like that happen before. So, despite whatever kind of Joe Rogan science some people believe in the gun industry, I just can't, I can't say that I've had any issues, luckily. So, optics mounts. That I'm just assuming what optics mounts do I like or what do I recommend. So there isn't one best one or anything like that. So we'll just go through that real quick. For the side rail, you're looking at RS Regulate. There's not a whole lot else on the market that's going to get you the stability. Another one that does have just as much stability but is a completely different style of mount, Crook, KPYK, Crook from Ukraine. They have side mount rails that are absolutely fantastic, real chonky bitches too. Don't weigh a whole lot, luckily, but they're very, very, very stable. If you don't have the money for that sort of thing, because RS Regulate is extremely expensive, and a Crook is only going to cost you in between $100 and $120. It's something like that. They're actually not very much, and Crook USA is now actually in full operation. So within a couple weeks, when they get their first shipment in, you'll be able to get all of that through them. So definitely check that out. But as far as cheaper optics mounts, I'd have to say the UTG AccuSync. If you're looking for a budget mount, out of all those cheapo, fucking just way cheap optics mounts, that is the only one I have found that holds at 0 and its locking mechanism works every time. It's the same one that Zastava uses for their own optics mounts. It's the UTG AccuSync. I love that thing for the price. It was really good. It served me well. I probably did 40, 50 competitions with that thing, and it held 0 the entire time, so you really can't complain there. As far as non-side mount, I would say Atero Arms. Atero Arms is absolutely fantastic. They just replaced your sight leaf, and you do still have irons if you wanted to take the red dot off, and they come in a variety of base plate patterns, including Picatinny, so you have a lot of choices with Atero. They also make a mini barrel, a replacement for the rail on the mini barrel. They actually make one that's a direct mount, so that's pretty damn cool. Let me see. I do like the Gen 3 Texas Weapon Systems dogleg rails. Those are real good. I've heard complaints about the older Gen Texas Weapon Systems doglegs, but the new Gen, the Gen 3s, they hold 0, they don't wiggle whatsoever, they're solid, they're really good. I would definitely choose something like that over some piece of shit Zenico any day, because personally I'm not a Zenico lover. If you know where that stuff is actually manufactured, you wouldn't love it. There's a reason why that finish just comes off like it was slathered on with butter or something like that. There's a reason why that stuff dings real harshly. Let me see, I'm trying to think of any other optics mounts. Oh, I did mention the Ultimac. Some people do prefer a forward mounted optic. So when it comes to a forward mounted optic, you're going to probably want to do a gas tube replacement like an Ultimac. That's probably one of the most stable ways to do it, but there are some handguards such as Crook or Zenitco or, trying to think of a couple others. Anyhow, there is a couple forward rails that do hold zero, so that's another option. But when it comes to the forward mounted optics, I would say go Ultimac. Definitely go Ultimac. Just go with the OG. Okay, so this one has many parts to it. I thought it was an interesting set of questions, so we're just going to tackle it piece by piece. My thoughts on AK culture. Well, I'm kind of steeped in AK culture, so quite obviously I love it a lot. One of the things that primarily I love about the AK culture, it's just so family-like. There's such little judgment. It's incredible. You see folks of all different races, sexualities, and creeds, and all types of shooting styles, and all sorts of experience levels. And in my experience, everybody's there to help everybody out, regardless of any problem anybody would have outside of a match. So I think that is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen out of any shooting community, because you certainly don't see things like that out of like the IDPA crowd. That's not their bag. But when it comes to the AK culture, I mean, it's just funny that a lot of us like trash. And I don't mean bad parts or anything, but a lot of us like this like apocalyptic look on our rifles, and spray painting them and all that shit, and just that comedy factor, coupled with just the open and freeness of the AK culture. It's goddamn near the hippie of the gun culture. So I mean, I absolutely love it. I mean, that's really all I could say to that. Ammo preferences. So, that's going to come down to a variety of different factors. So, when it comes down to it, brass, that's going to be PMC, straight up, because it's available anywhere in the United States. And personally, I don't go for all that expensive federal stuff with the, match grade ammo and all that. I like to go for what you can get anywhere in the United States. And I've used a variety of different brass, even down to the Freedom Munitions remanufactured ammo, which I had never had any issues with personally. I actually thought it was some pretty good stuff personally, but like I said, I never had any issues with it, and you can get 62 grain through them pretty cheap. But when it gets down to it, just some standard old PMC, I think, is one of the best brass out there, because it's consistent, it's always going to run, and it's available damn near everywhere. But we are AK people, so primarily we do shoot steel. When it gets down to the steel, I'd have to say, I like a lot of the stuff that Wolf brings in. A lot of it is repackaged Tula, or, you can find some that's Vimpel, and, they carry a variety of ammo, and they're just an importer that repackages. But so far, whatever it is they're repackaging in whichever box, I've always had a good amount of consistency out of it, as opposed to, just straight imported Tula, where I've had a lot more hot shots. When I go into the higher grains, like if I'm shooting 69 grain, Red Army Standard, man, that is some really good stuff right there. Red Army Standard, pretty much in all grains I've bought it, has been absolutely fantastic. And a lot of that's out of Ukraine. That's real good ammo. Probably not getting it again for a long, long time. I'm sure we will, because they're going to need to make some money after this war. But that stuff, absolutely love it. I know, I got a little bit of a weird opinion on ammo. I mean, if I had the money, I'd be shooting some really nice match grade Federal or whatever, But, I shoot a lot of competition, so it's just not in the pocketbook. Practice before a match. I always practice before a match, always, any way I possibly can. So, as I said earlier, I've been having some financial difficulties due to some, legal wrangling. So, a lot of my practice has been down to dry fire lately, and, going to the range as much as I can. But generally what I like to do about maybe 3 to 4 weeks before a competition, sometimes only 2 weeks before a competition. I'll usually bring out maybe just 2 mags or so every single time I go, and I'll start training it real heavy. Sometimes I'll go an hour without even firing a shot, honestly, and it's literally just working on movement. Because, I think in the past I described I did have some real big movement issues when I first started doing competition shooting. And that was one of the things that really helped me, was just literally, click the trigger, no shot, just work on movement, running back and forth, get out of an awkward position. And admittedly, I've been DQ'd a couple times due to my movement, Twice I have tripped on a stage and got DQ'd because, muzzle. And, it does happen. I've seen it a billion times. So, yeah, I'd have to say just a few weeks before a match, I start doing some training, and I really, really concentrate on making that mag last, because when you're practicing to make that mag last, I think you get a more fruitful practice out of it. But, you got to go out at least one day and do some like build drills and, really dump it and really get the feel of your recoil and, when you're doing rapid fire, because, you should be trying in between your transitions of targets, you should be trying to get as little space in between your trigger pulls as possible. So, it is helpful to do things, even though it looks like you're just fucking off when you're doing a build drill, which is basically essentially just dumping it right at the target. I forget, is it 5 shots, something like that? I'm not that versed on drills, but doing mag dumps does actually help. It's going to help your consistency, and trying to get a consistent flow through that entire magazine is a helpful thing. So, I do like maybe one day where I bring out, maybe a couple hundred rounds or something like that, and just really work on dumping it, but mostly it'll be like 2 magazines a day, and that might only be like once a week, twice a week or something before a match, ones that I'm really training hard for. And a lot of that time will be spent on just literally, working on my snaps and, movement, basically getting out of in and out of positions and shouldering and getting back on the optic as fast as possible. So yeah, that's kind of my practice routine. So yeah, I definitely say practice before a match. Let's see, favorite ear pro for competition. I have 2. Electronic, I'd say AKT1 Sports. I think those are the best bang for the buck on the market, honestly, because they're about $100, I believe, something like that, and they come from the factory with memory foam. So you got nice gel cups from the factory. I like the memory foam. It's really, really comfortable. The sound quality on those things is awesome. They're real bright and real loud without actually affecting your hearing. And yeah, I just think overall that is the best bang for the buck, because your next step up in quality is literally like some 3M Peltors that are going to cost you like $400. So me personally, especially being much of a value person, I say go for them AKT1 Sports. They are better than walkers. I use walkers all the time. Y'all see me use walkers all the time. But yeah, I'd say AKT1 Sport. And then outside of that, I actually just use passive earplugs. Most of the time I just use passive earplugs. So I like those conical ones with the ridges. I don't know what you call those, but yeah, they hold in real well, and they block out most stuff, and I don't really like to hear a lot when I'm shooting, so, it's, I guess it's a sensory thing, block the sound out and concentrate more on my shooting. So, yeah, that's that. Let me see. Custom work that I have done or do to my AKs. Obviously, triggers. Always ALGs, but I'm actually in the process of getting some CMC AK triggers, because for the past few months I've checked out a few different people's rifles with those CMC AK triggers, the 2.0, and oh my god, I love that trigger. It is awesome. To be honest with you, the first one I tried was Mario Parada from SOF Defense. He had a highly modified one on his rifle, and I was like, oh my God. But then every other time I saw one after that and I started seeing some people with them, I was like, dude, can I take a couple shots out of that and get that trigger try? Dude, out of the box, that thing is pretty dope. I like that trigger quite a bit. Outside of that, adjustable gas. It's a great thing to have. Don't have it on too many of my AKs, but it is definitely a worthy thing to have. K and S piston or an Occam block, you're good either way. They do different. They do function differently. K and S piston I think is personally the best way to go. But for the simplicity of things right now, and just the particular spots that the gas the gas puck in the adjustable gas. Occam defense, I did check out a couple of those as well based on a few recommendations. And I'd have to say I do like it a little more than the JMac, which is a bit similar, but it doesn't use a puck system, so it's less carbon with the Occam defense from what I've heard. I don't own any myself. This is something I've been told by other users. But when you're using an adjustable gas block, inherently you're going to get a little bit of carbon with that, carbon buildup with that thing. So yeah, that's another thing I definitely do. But outside of that, I don't do a whole lot of modification to my rifles. Just really trigger, adjustable gas. A lot of the times I leave that factory 74 brake on there because that's a damn good brake. But outside of that, I'll change it over to a JMac RRD4C. I do have a couple of the camo mounts, but personally they weren't my cup of tea because I only have a 360 and a two-door when it comes to the camo, and frankly I didn't really notice a huge difference on my muzzle rise with those, so it was whatever for me personally. It might be the ammo I'm using, who knows, but not something I've really done a whole lot of science on. What products do I use to clean my AKs? I do kind of a multi-part thing. I'll usually scrub it down with ballistol myself, and then I'll usually wash the ballistol out with a mix of grease and motor oil actually. So I just use some Mobil 1 530, sometimes some 1030. Basically, I mean that's what I use in my car, so it's usually whatever I have hanging around. I've even used Royal Purple. And then I just basically mix it with a small amount of gear grease. That's it. Very, very simple. As far as CLP, I mean it works just fine. It works just fine, but I do really like the effect of ballistol and then just washing it out and giving it a nice oil with motor oil and some grease. Not too complicated. And plus, oh my God, you will save some money doing stuff like that. Okay, so next question. What has been your best or favorite accessory purchase? ALG. ALG triggers, man. They're absolutely fantastic, but outside of that, because I'm fairly largely a, yet rifle is fine person, furniture, I do like furniture, and honestly, there is a bit of a benefit to changing out some of your furniture. Like, for example, Kalashnikov Banditos and Shark Tooths. Those things are awesome because, when you slap your hand back, you got a little something to pull on, and it's spaced a little farther back than if you were to put a forward grip on there or a hand stop. But there's a few new things I'm trying out, and lately I have really been liking not being Mr. Tactical, because I really don't like tactical rifles at all, but I've been using a Armacon handguard, and I've actually been digging it a little bit. I've been using a mid-length one, mostly so I can jut the rifle in and set it down without getting any harmonic flex on the barrel. But yeah, I mean, really, mostly furniture is my favorite thing to do, and that'd be Kalashnikov and ALGs, definitely. Because I'm not even always running a red dot. I do like to run iron sights quite a bit. In fact, this year, even prior to Lethal Weapons, I've been running iron sights primarily, actually. So, yeah, I guess I'm not a huge accessory person, as much as a gear guy as I am. I do own a lot of that stuff just because, you pick it up over the years, but my rifles usually end up going back to factory form with an ALG essentially, and I usually just have fun changing out the grips and the handguards and the stocks and stuff like that. Actually, one accessory that's underrated that I really do love is the GP25, the rubber pad for the end of your stock. It works on a variety of different stocks and is great for just a factory wood, just factory wood stock. It's great on triangle stocks if you use a zip tie to kind of tighten it up a little bit. But another thing a lot of people don't know is that it actually fits on the back of a wire folder perfectly. So if you happen to have a Tantal or something with Warsaw length, a Warsaw length wire folder or something like that, just adding that little bit of length to pull, it's like the perfect amount of length to pull. And it adds a nice little bit of shootability to it because when you jam your rifle back into your shoulder, it doesn't hurt. So another thing it allows you to do is because it's rubber, you can hold the rifle right on your shoulder during your reloads and get as much stability as if you're kicking it under your shoulder. And a lot of people don't like those pads because they don't look cool, but it is so functional and adds so much to the shootability for, $12 to $15 or whoever you buy it from that, I couldn't say I can't recommend those. They're awesome. They're really awesome. So, what is an item I regret buying? Ooh, that is a tough question. That's a tough question. Trying to think of anything I really regret buying. I have a fairly positive view on most things, but I'd have to say if I regretted buying anything, like I said, nothing to JMac or anything, but I didn't notice a huge difference on my rifle with this two-door brake. Their four-door brakes, that's some good stuff. It'll really flatten your shot out. I just personally didn't notice a huge difference with this guy, so maybe it's not my cup of tea, maybe I'm just not noticing it, but I don't see a whole lot of difference when I put that thing on, and that's just me maybe, because usually you're swapping that out from a factory 74 style brake, yeah, something like that, so I think it's such a negligible difference between the two that unless you're mounting a suppressor, I would just stick with a regular factory 74 style brake. Excuse me, I had to return some videotapes. So, continue on with that question. Do I have any pre-match rituals, foods, drinks, supplements, etc.? Actually a little bit. So, I generally get up and work out in the morning for about 30 minutes or so. And, I generally have a couple cups of coffee. I used to be an extremely heavy coffee drinker. I'm talking literally like about a gallon a day, so it's not really good for you. And since I've cut down, I usually maybe have 1 or 2 cups in the morning, but if I have any more than that these days, I start getting the jitters, so I definitely try not to do that. I try to eat before matches. They generally happen so early I might only get a snack in me or something like that. But if I have time to stop for breakfast, I certainly will and have a nice light breakfast. But supplements is an interesting question because there are some that are beneficial, absolutely. And I'd definitely say B12. Definitely B12. I'll pop that, definitely. Cordyceps, that's definitely a really good one. Gives you a lot of goddamn energy, and shit, you might even sweat less, to tell you the truth, if you take enough of this shit. It's pretty incredible stuff. So let's move on here. What is one gun that I would love to own today? Ooh. Well, when it comes to like dream rifles and all that, I feel very, very fortunate because, just through some flips and trades and saving up and stuff like that, I do have a couple of my dream rifles, which, was the Barreel. I always wanted one of those. And you know, crank. I do have a crank, so a 545 crank is definitely well, cranks are 545. You know, it's definitely a dream gun for quite a few people. But you know, if I was gonna say any rifle that I would just, without any kind of price concerns or anything like that I could get, it would probably be either an East German 74 or, you know, probably a old Tula 74 or something like that. You know, I wouldn't mind actually owning something from Kalashnikov concern. That'd be kind of cool. Not an AK-12. I don't give a crap about that rifle. It's, you know, I have enough friends that came back from Ukraine, and I have enough friends in Ukraine that I've had experience with them on the battlefield, and I couldn't tell you a round count, but they're apparently way big pieces of shit. As a civilian and collector, I think it'd be kind of neat to have. They're fun to shoot. They're definitely fun to shoot. They're good shooters. But in the long run, it's not something I'd really want to maintenance and all that crap, because that was one thing they told me, was that maintaining them is a pain in the ass. So there's a second part of that question. Favorite optic for the AK-47. So on the cheaper end of the scale, I'd say 100% the Primary Arms MD25. That's probably my overall favorite optic. With ACSS. I do like ACSS quite a bit. Other than that, if you step up in the price scale a little bit, I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I do love an EOTech. I definitely love an EOTech because I like high-rise optics, so, you know, the extra height on it, it's pretty nice for me personally. I like it a lot. So yeah, I'd probably say the Primary Arms MD25 and an EOTech. Really, any EOTech will do, because I mean, I just, you know, I'm pretty standard with them. 7.62, 5.45, or 5.56. Ooh. So number one, 5.45. I'll argue to the death it's a superior round. I will argue to the goddamn death. So, being that it is a bit expensive right now, we're in between shipments, and also there is a war going on where both sides are using 5.45. We're in a little bit of a lull currently in July of 2023 with 5.45. So 5.56 right now it's king right now, you know. So ballistically, I way prefer 5.45. I like the way it travels. It does real good at distance. Should you actually need to shoot a human with it, it's a pretty damn good round. Of course, 5.56 is great for that. 7.62, 7.62 by 3.9, perfectly fine round. Love the round a lot. I just don't shoot it very much because I'm, you know, primarily a competition shooter. So, you know, until I get a rifle, as I was saying, kind of set up for 7.62, I generally go for the automatic lower recoil, lower muzzle rise, and when it comes to that, you really can't beat 5.45, but just with availability right now, I'd have to say 5.56. Currently in July of 2023, definitely 5.56 at the moment. Why is there zero aftermarket support for the Beryl? So that's actually a good question. That's a really good question. So the original importer of Beryls was IO, and their builder was, at the time, when they were still around, it was actually let me start that over, sorry. So IO was the original importer for Beryls, and their builder was Pioneer Arms. So not a lot of people realize that, but that's one of the reasons why they always put Radom on the side of their shit, like their FB Radom, but they're not. You know, it's just parts from the city of Radom, you know, so kind of a fake out on their part. But one of the things, the reason why there's not so much aftermarket support is when IO was bringing these things in, they did a terrible job at supporting the aftermarket. They didn't bring in POPC rails. They didn't bring any of the quad rails. They didn't bring in any of the, the W96, WZ96B variants or anything like that. With the glued on, bolted in, weirdo kind of forward grip thing, whatever you want to call it. They were just hard to get at the time, so you were having to go to the used market for stuff like that. And by the time AOA, Arms of America, started importing these barreels, the supply of things like this started to dwindle. So that's one reason why there's not a ton of aftermarket support for the barreel specifically. That said, mostly you can put a lot of just regular AKM parts on it. You might find trouble with a folding stock here and there. The upper handguard is different, so if you were going to change out the handguard and you wanted to change out the upper handguard, you're going to have to use one of those upper handguards that bolts into the lower handguard, or you're going to have to use an adapter that AOA actually sells where you could just use a regular, AKM upper. And as far as muzzle devices, yeah, you're gonna have to pop that thing off. And the American ones, the American imports are threaded. That is some people think they're not threaded. They are threaded. That's something you have to do for import. So there is aftermarket support, but not a lot of direct support. When it comes to the actual FB Ratum parts, you get what you get. You get what you get. Of course, outside of AOA carrying stuff, you're gonna have to look at places like Gunbroker. Every once in a while, you see something pop up on Texas Gun Trader, but not very often. So, I think that's kind of one of the fun things about barreels is trying to track down those parts. I think it's fun. It is part of the fun of owning AKs. And we're wrapping it up here. This is the last question. I actually remember who asked that question. Thank you, Cheesy Chungus. So we are on the last question here. So I gotta thank you guys so much, man. I mean, it's like I said, the support's been overwhelming, and I mean, just doing this little Q&A has been a lot of fun. So last question is: I love the film clips. What is your favorite movie? Favorite war movie? Two different questions there. So, favorite movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. The original. I mean, this hat that you always see me wearing, it's a Texas, here, blue. That's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre hat, actually. And this is from the gas station that was the gas station in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's now a barbecue joint, so that's why it says barbecue on the back. But if you're ever wondering why I wear this hat so much, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre hat. I absolutely love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As far as the sequels go, oh my god, man. Texas Chainsaw 2, oh god, it's so fun. It's just so fun. And Texas Chainsaw 3, oh my god. I mean, just the whole history of the movie. Dude, you got freaking Dennis Hopper in there. Oh my god, he was so great. And dude, it was probably the best role Matthew McConaughey ever did. Dude, hell yeah. Shit was awesome. As far as the new Texas Chainsaw Massacres, the first remake, fantastic. I loved it. There's been a few real good ones here and there. I did check out that Netflix thing, and honestly, probably half my problem with it is how much they, I didn't like the look of Leatherface. I thought he looked all fucked up and stupid, but other than that, the movie was kind of okay. Hello! Favorite war movie. So, my favorite war movie I've definitely talked about a couple times. I've definitely commented to a couple people online and they've seen it and noticed it. Come and See. It's called Come and See. might have actually been Ukrainian produced. I'd have to look that up again. I have to remember that one, but that movie is about a child who playing with his buddy is during World War II. They're playing by a crashed plane, and they dig up a rifle, and the kid takes the rifle and he ends up joining the local Soviet militia to go fight the Nazis. And essentially, the movie is one of the most realistic depictions of war, pretty much universally agreed upon. One of the most absolutely devastating depictions of war, active PTSD and shell shock. It's an incredible movie, and this is all through the point of view of a child. And yeah, just to illustrate the craziness of this movie and its originality for its time, because it's an older movie, it is in color. His first experience with the Nazis is he runs into the Einsatzgruppen Dirlewanger Brigade. If you're not familiar, that is the famous unit that was made up of criminals, the rapists and pedophiles and murderers and whatnot. And yeah, Dirlewanger, the commander, go look him up. Pardon me. Go look him up. You see his company photo? Dude is sitting there all whacked out, looking crazy as shit, dude. They're bad people. One of the more disappointing things about the movie Dunkirk, really, because Dirlewanger Brigade was there at Dunkirk. And aside from the fact that there was a guy fighting with a sword and a bow and arrow at Dunkirk, God, there's so many crazy things they could have put in that movie that they didn't. Dunkirk sucked. But Come and See, my favorite war movie. After that, Saving Private Ryan. It's just, I mean, dude, that's a fantastic movie, man. That is just a fantastic movie. Non-World War II movies, I'd have to say Cyborgs. Cyborgs, Heroes Never Die. It's a Ukrainian movie about the beginning of the war back in 2014, where they're defending the Donetsk airport, I believe it was. Fucking fantastic movie, and that's another one. High realism, highly realistic. It's just an awesome movie. Trying to think of any others that I really enjoy. Those are just my favorites right there. So yeah, I'd say Come and See, Saving Private Ryan, and Cyborgs, Heroes Never Die. Those three movies are fucking fantastic. Obviously, two of those you're gonna have to deal with subtitles, but man, you want a war movie that's not all quiet on the Western Front and just super fucking brutal? Them some movies that'll get your jollies off. So that concludes our little Q&A here. My apologies for my little tisk leaving my ringer on, but I was trying to do this without editing. I wanted to just answer your questions and have some fun here with y'all and just hang out and leave my shitty speech and stutters in and all that, and nice and human. So, as usual, speaking of AK culture, y'all stay safe, y'all have fun, do stupidest.